Welcome to Cosmic Comics. Today I'm going to be looking at the origins and the first couple of appearances of Null, the Living Darkness. The issues I'm going to be looking at are The Defenders, Volume 1, Issue number 103, and Ghostwriter Volume 2, Issue number 71. The history of Null, the Living Darkness begins with a race of approximately 500,000 pure-souled, open-hearted beings living upon the moon millennia ago called the Seraph. These beings lacked nothing and were capable of spending their days as they saw fit. Unsatisfied with their idyllic existence, the Seraph left the moon and flew out into the cosmos in search of the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Or as Marvel chose to phrase it, a reason for being, or in search of truth. The more the Seraph searched, the more it became apparent that they weren't going to find the answer they sought. They started to despair, and somehow the word got around to all of them that it was time to head home. Upon returning home, the surface of the moon is an ocean of fire. Yeah, so, that's a thing that happened. It was all craters when they left. So, the surface is fire, and since everybody is super depressed, they commit speciocide. They all dive into the fire. But it didn't end in death. No, there were far too many sad, depressed, forlorn beings dying all at once for the torment to end there. The Seraph, they wanted revenge against the very creation that gave them no answers to their quest for meaning. Thus, over a period of untold ages, the collective cry of the Seraph gave birth to Null, who appears to climb right out of a moon crater as a form of birth. The lake of fire is gone, and we're back to craters on the moon. Null sees himself as an enemy to all living beings and sees it as his purpose to spread a doctrine of suicidal death. Null's next step is to come to Earth, where he takes over the small town of Christiansboro, which was founded by the ancestors of the Gargoyle. The Defenders all decide to tag along with Gargoyle for a visit home, and upon arrival, find the town deserted. If you are interested in the character of the Gargoyle, this is a great issue to read, as it goes into the character's family and his origin story. I'd be remiss not to mention it, but I want the focus of this episode to be on Null, the Living Darkness. Members of the Defenders each run across various ill-intentioned, I won't go as far as to call them evil, spirits in town. This culminates with all the Defenders except Gargoyle waking up in Christiansboro Cemetery and standing before Null, the Living Darkness, who has so been waiting to tell somebody all about himself. He tells everybody his origin story and then sends various dead spirits to attack the Defenders. After a failed suicide attempt, the Gargoyle arrives on the scene. His comrades already in battle, their powers useless against Null. And yes, I just said failed suicide attempt. And yes, it is shown in the pages of Marvel. In fact, the Gargoyle gets genuinely pissed off that he fails in the attempt. Pretty edgy stuff for a Marvel comic, and it's something that I'm not entirely certain would get printed today. At first, the Gargoyle attempts his standard attack, firing away his bio-mystic bolts, which happen to siphon away a portion of every victim's soul. In the midst of the battle, the Gargoyle discovers that he can reverse the flow of his powers. Thus, he begins channeling a tiny sliver of a soul into Null, the Living Darkness, who, due to his very nature, finds his condition unbearable, lets out a wail of pure horror, and disappears. Goes away, flees the scene. Much as the question mark in this panel indicates, he does not die. Instead, Null wanders the earth, wounded, pained, confused. During this time, he realizes that he still has so much to learn about himself, the human race, and the larger world, and for some reason, he can only merge with a human who has a super bitter heart. It's odd that he can merge with a human at all, as taking on the embodiment of life seems counterintuitive to something that is anti-life, but whatever. I'll roll with it. The person Null is found to possess is Adam Henderson, an unhappy, disgruntled educator who would prefer to be making money as a musician instead. Adam has a bad day at work, blows up on his girlfriend, and smashes his favorite guitar. While walking things off afterwards, Adam becomes possessed by Null and generally continues to be an ass at this point. He walks by a house where a bunch of kids are having fun and listening to loud music. This aggravates him, so he cuts out their power. He passes by an aggressive dog, so Adam barks back at the dog, and it dies. Holy shit, that is dark. He continues through a carnival, bumping into people and not paying attention to those around him. Upon finding a fortune teller, Null once again feels compelled to share his origin story, but this time adding on a bit about getting defeated by the defenders and attempting to find a bitter human heart to possess. And he's found it. And then he starts crying these super creepy black tears. He goes on to explain to the fortune teller that he thinks of Adam as his living weapon with which he can level all life. So that's why he took over the body of a person. It was some kind of missing ingredient to Null's embodiment of power, or maybe he's literally using Adam as a weapon, because the next set of black tears Adam cries end up blowing up as they hit the floor. Everybody at the carnival rushes in to see what happened, which leads to a bit of typical villain grandstanding. All of this has gotten the attention of Johnny Blaze, who is the current iteration of Ghostwriter at this time. There is more to the story, but at this point it basically boils down to a confrontation wherein Ghostwriter attacks Adam/Null, and Ghostwriter's powers seem to have no effect. In fact, Null claims to feed off of Ghostwriter's power. Null then ends up shrinking the Ghostwriter, and this makes the Ghostwriter so very mad. So mad, in fact, that he immediately reverses the shrinking, and now the Hellfire works on his enemy. No explanation, nothing. Just, my powers work on you now because I'm angry enough to make that a thing that happens. We're given the explanation that Adam is capable of withstanding the Hellfire due to the fact that he has a soul, and thoughts of his girlfriend Maureen save him from going insane. Null, not having a soul or a girlfriend, isn't protected and thus forced to flee. Now that I've taken a look at the first two appearances, I'd like to take a moment to discuss Null. From these two appearances, he's portrayed inconsistently, and his origin is tied to a race of angelic moon creatures that are never mentioned anywhere else in the Marvel Universe, at least to my knowledge. The character is an enigma that stands outside of the rest of the cosmic pantheon. Null is his own thing. I both love and hate this character for this. I might not have touched on him at all, but hopefully without giving away too much, I'll go ahead and say that he ties into the Overmind's attempted takeover of Earth S, which I believe I'll be covering next. Thanks for joining me for another episode. It helps the channel whenever anybody hits those buttons below. I'm out.